is Monday, February 2nd, 2026. I'm Sweets. This is Sid. This is our Monday weekly check-in where we talk about what we're going to be delivering this week. To kick it off, we planned what we wanted to do this month. So this week, 2 to 6 is Email Pulse and Sandbox V0. Second week, Email Pulse, Sandbox V0 feedback. Third week, SMS Inbound, Sandbox V0. And fourth week, SMS Pulse and Sandbox V0. So zooming in on the first one, Email Pulse and Sandbox V0. Pulse is already live in alpha. So if you're not already using it yet, that's fine. It's in alpha. If you want access, you can go to chat.recoupable.com/pulse to check it out. I'll let Sid cover Pulse because he's the one who did more updates over the weekend. I will briefly show Sandbox. To show Sandbox, Sid, have you already tested the Sandbox? Or if no, you mind sharing screen and going and test it now?
Yeah, let's do it.
You go to your screen.
Sandbox.
Sandbox is plural. I'm sorry. Yep.
All right.
It looks like you tried to hit enter to send it. I've also done that. We're using a text box, which means that people can do multi-line. Do you think it's more intuitive for the enter to just send the Sandbox and lean less into the text field multi-line? Or not important?
Not important. I think it's going to need to figure out how to inline chat with not on through this /sandboxes is more important.
Another thing that I'm also still working through today is right now it continues to run until the Sandbox finishes its commands. So you'll see it sitting here spinning until it finishes. I'm updating it so that the creation of the Sandbox happens and then the API sends a response back. And then we offload the running of those commands into trigger.dev as a task so that it runs in the background. That way you get back the Sandbox and you can monitor the Sandbox and you don't sit here saying, why is it taking so long for the Sandbox that already says that it's stopping? Because right now it's running the full Sandbox and then it doesn't reply until it's finished running those commands.
Understood. Yeah. Just more feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. What do I do now?
What do I do now is a great question. Did you do anything after it finished?
I do not know what to do. No, I did not do anything. It just says
okay.
Stop.
Cool. You didn't click on anything. You didn't have any intuitive things that you naturally did. Okay. That's a great question. And this is where I wanted to check in with you on. The main question I have is how do we get this in a place where it is, I'm trying to start with the end in mind. The end is we tell our enterprise customers about this on our weekly calls. Working back from there, what is preventing us from doing that? It sounds like the immediate next step is what do I do when I see that a Sandbox is created, which feels very normal. One thing that we could do is when you create it and the response from the API comes back immediately, which is another change I'm about to do, we take you into the Sandbox instance and then we just show you line by line like what is happening with the commands that are being run. Or do you have any thoughts? That's my initial thought, is just show what is going on inside of the Sandbox and visualize that and take you immediately to seeing that and see the updates in real time. Do you have a different idea for how this can be valuable? I feel like the UI that I was just presenting is what Blackbox does, what most tech-forward companies do, focused on devs. We are focused on the record label and the music industry. Is there a different UI or experience we might want to present to help answer that question of what do I do now that I created the Sandbox and it died?
Yeah. Starting from the end in mind, and going back to the initial question of like, when do I use a Sandbox versus regular chat?
I was thinking about that in the shower again today. I want to add a quick point in. We do get Just Bash, which is a tool set, so we can add it in so that even in the chat, people can interact with their Sandboxes. So
then in that case, what the next step would be? Mm-hmm. Are you saying, okay, so like, I guess next step would be what? Let's start from the end in mind. How would the user know the difference? So I'm going to go to Vercel elements.
Vercel AI elements. Yeah, that's a great.
And they have a file system element now. And I say we replace our file system element or
Yep.
our file system UI with theirs
Yep.
so that the user can see files being written to their system and like visually giving them the because the value of sandboxing is file system management, more file system management and bash and searching, etc.
Yep.
So I think it all starts back from the file system. Let's go back to wait, AI elements. Where is it?
Yeah, this is weird where it took you to.
Let's go here. Let's go explore components,
Oh, they got their own.
and let's go to code file tree. Here we go.
File tree. Agree. Brilliant idea.
All of these elements for code. So I think just like they have a sandbox.
Oh, they have a sandbox. What is a collapsible container for displaying? And they have interesting.
So they have all of this stuff that I think like if you want to talk about like visually what the user will see, and how do we want them to interact? I think is starting from here, like just some UI elements.
Yep.
And then the question becomes, like in a perfect world, the user doesn't even know that they're using a sandbox versus, inline chat. They don't care about that. Correct. It's just like, oh, this thing is smarter now. Oh, it manages my files better, right? And so like the next step for me is thinking through like, how do we make the selected artist only mess with the file system of that selected artist? How do we make it so that you can put a file, the agent can put a file across the entire org and we can access the release template, but then go to a selected artist and say like, like starting to think through how does the agent know what accounts it has access to and when to initiate them. And then visually, like how do we represent that to the user, right? The user is going to want to see the file system, et cetera. And I think I have a list of questions that I want to give to Alexis today. And a lot of it revolves around like, because right now we're battling two forces of inertia. The one is we already have Google Sheets, Google Drive, email. We're already doing releases that way.
Yep.
So should we put an agent on top of that workflow and still use that file system management system there, which again, runs the risk of our agent fucking up their system versus copying or starting to build out its own file system based on what they have, but then like having a sandbox or a place to like let the user check and then say like, okay, push this to Google Drive, like if we want. And like, I think there's the value of the sandbox is security, and the people that are managing the agents have more access to tweaking what the agent does and like creating files and doing things and searching things, etc. And then saying, okay, I'm now ready to move this to my entire team, and eventually like figuring out what the relationship between Google Drive is and the agent's sandbox, and then also the difference between like a user sandbox and just thinking through context management. Context management, man, is this next. I keep yelling it, but yeah.
Keep yelling it. I think that's a good chant for us to keep following. I know we've only got 2 minutes left. On your side, is there anything you want to cover?
On my side, I'm going to continue to mess with the prompting of the Pulse. The big question mark is in ChatGPT's Pulse, it, based on conversations, creates new ones for the user proactively. Mm-hmm. We create one, which is more like a task, just proactively. And so that's the question is like, in order to break from the difference between a pulse and a task, I think the next step is well, one is context management. And like, again, it goes back to like, how do I know an artist is on somebody's radar this week? How do I know if something is relevant to the user? Like, how do we create like something that's really interesting about Claudebot is like its webhooks of like, it has webhooks fire and then like create files and shit like based on them. And so like, what are the webhooks that we can integrate so that like, I'm still thinking through this architecture, but like, you know, what can we do so that the thing is proactive, so it knows when an artist has a new release? Like, we don't currently. My prompt is look at all of our artists, then go search the internet to see which one's most relevant. Like the chances of it coming back with something like that's real is low. So like similar to how we set up the system of like every night at 12 o'clock, pull my latest YouTube stats, pull my like. So the system is self-updating information. Like every night, come in and look at my Spotify to see if I have a release in the last week. If yes, priority artist, then run these things, you know, and so these chains. That's the big one. And then the other one is onboarding. I need to delete those two file or those two columns that we had created. And then I wanted to get into the question of like, what is the database structure required for onboarding? But I know we have the other call, so we can jump to that and talk about the other one later.